1:31 in the morning, February 2nd, 2019. This is a clip from Richie from Boston. It's a place called Stone Mountain, Georgia. Now, this is the largest relief in the world. And I'm telling you to look at it closely. It's not about the three riders, but the fact that there's a big, fat serpent lit up for you. Like, hey, I'm here. The lighting is perfect. This photographer knew what he was doing. And the people that set this up and designed it knew what they were doing. You're looking head on at a serpent right here. This, where these guys are riding, that's the slit in the mouth. You see, it's a viper. It almost looks like a crocodile. But I'm still sticking with it's a serpent. That's who runs the show. Down here, that's who runs the show. Indisputable. Men do it for him. He can't create. A government is a creation within a creation, right? God created us, and we created the idea that one man could possibly rule over another. When you're God's own child, but that's a serpent, and it's supposed to be a relief of, I think, General Lee. Everything goes together. The whole earth, the world, a great big show. Let the games begin. And it's been playing out. And what an exciting time to watch it unfold. But with a purpose. Even Satan had to earn his clout. God doesn't give anything away for nothing. He just got so good, so blessed with gifts, and he worked he accomplished. That's how that same entity can represent this snake, this serpent, that system. You see, the whole thing is a lie. It's got one head, Satan, and the rest of it is tail. Get it? Tails, lies. It's becoming so blatantly obvious. There are signs and symbols. Excuse me, I'm exhausted. Overworked. Strict deadlines that it seemingly never meet. But somehow it gets done and everybody's happy. Except for me. Because I'm overworked. Because I'd rather do this and point out this abomination. But it is the negative side of God's plan. Without the villain, we can't have a good guy. This makes sense. But it's balance as well. Because you're stuck down here in a world that's run and owned and operated. I won't say it's owned, it's on lease for this system to reign. In America, we used to keep this at bay. Right here. We used to keep this at bay. How? With our Bibles. So listen to this.
Here, check this out. There's 3 horsemen. It's just crazy, man. It's like the largest relief or whatever in the world. And you got these 3 horsemen here. All right, in Georgia, this is like really close to Atlanta. Actually, it's on the 33rd parallel, which is interesting because Atlanta's on the 33rd, LA is on the 33rd, and the game itself is on the 33rd day of the year, which is interesting as well. A lot of 33s. But yeah, you see this here. That's the opening to the stadium. That I'll get into that in a second, but I want to just lead you up to this here, and it plays into some more scripture as well as we go along here. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium. What a place that is, I'll tell you. All right, there's a million places we could go, but if you watch the last video, I talked about the crown, the wreath, the diadem, okay? And this also resembles a flower, very much so. So we have all the symbolism in this one building. It's crazy, the triangles, the pyramidal, symbolism everywhere. The Mercedes emblem itself is extremely interesting. And this retracting roof that they have, okay? This is an oculus. I mean, in their own description, it is an oculus because that's what it is. And it is an eye because that's what an oculus is. I mean, if you literally look at the definition, okay, it is an eye. That's literally what it is. A circular opening, especially one at the apex of the dome.
You can see all over the world in architecture. Satan's footprint. signs and symbolisms.
You know, it's not like we're going out and worshiping the devil or anything. You know, music is just music. You ought to be able to do what you want to do. I mean, so what if they are Satanists? It's a free country. You have the freedom of religion, okay? That's like in the amendment somewhere, something like that. And we're not believing it.
That's right. But if that body of people intends to do harm, that's a different story. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But the cause for some type of war between the two is not necessary. We can still communicate. Whoever watches this, you know everything is monitored. Everything. So I continue to try to post videos. And for whatever reason, they won't upload. It's very difficult. Let's do something.
Every word that these bands are talking about, we just like the music for what it is, and we're not down people. You know, it's like I come from a very good home. You know, my dad's a pastor. You know, life is about partying, right? Having fun.
Well, outside the fringe world of black and death metal, and the occasional occult devotee, no one ever thinks they're worshiping the devil. And that includes artists who have dabbled with, studied, and even embraced the occult.
I'm not a Satanist. I don't worship the devil.
We reached the devil at his home in Las Vegas. When asked for a comment, Satan said, "No, he's not my boy, but I love him like a son."
Just for the record, Glenn Danzig does not, or this publicist, worship the devil.
Well, these people claim they don't. Yet their actions speak differently. And they are witches and wizards, modern day. And they try to cast spells on you. And they do. In the masses. On a huge scale. I'm not talking about there's a couple of witches that live in a house out in the country somewhere that I'm talking about corporations so that they can get away with doing this as lawfully as they can. They work for us. They are employed by the people. They're to protect and serve. This is why we ask them to give an oath of what they stand for when they start their occupation. That oath is a decree. That you remember you work for us and your job is to keep us safe. That's it. Not to enforce with force. Somebody's drinking and driving because there's a potential that somebody's bound to get hurt. Does our own employee that's supposed to help us in a time of need, they just don't seem to act that way anymore. Their actions don't meet those standards. The employees want to run the shop. This is why management will always complain about the workers, not fast enough, whatever. And the workers always think they know better how to make the place run smoother. I believe it's all to get you to one point. Everything just keeps narrowing it down. It gets you to one point so that you get that thought, that bulb begins to shine.
Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page echoed these disavowals when he stated, "I do not worship the devil, but magic does intrigue me." What about these denials? Did all these people mean well and are just following their own spiritual path, or as in the case of many heavy metal artists, simply living up to the dark, occultic persona that's expected of them? They and their fans can't be considered followers of Satan, can they? Well, listen carefully, because everything we've examined in this series has been leading up to this very point. The reason so many people reject the charge of Satan worship is because, as we saw earlier, they have a caricature of the devil and his religion in their minds. He's the horn-headed demon in red pajamas, and serving him should he?
Yeah, it's not him. That's what they want you to think he is. He's not that man with a pitchfork. You have to think of it. Just change the word to spiritual. He seems to be the cause for a person's inability to be honorable. That's what it boils down to. Just to be a good man on the land or woman. I don't want to watch too much of this. I don't want to watch any more of it, actually. What I want to do is go back to this and show you this viper right here. And of course, it would make sense that those of the synagogue of Satan most likely had their hand in doing this. I'm sure they played their part in it. But the same symbol is all over possibly the largest church that claims to be Christian. And it's time. It's time that all this gets exposed. Just know it exists. Know it's out there. Know that all day long, all over the earth, the signs and symbols lead to the time frame we're in. All this crap. Actually, I bet if I didn't do that, what is all this crap? So even in, look at this. Alright. You guys probably can see the obviousness of this. It's a girl's face. It's her upper torso. Her head. These are like her pigtails. Zoom back out. See her neck? She's got her arms up. Just happens to be blocked out in red. So there's some type of a spirit that can move freely through us. It can actually seemingly manipulate us to the point where the thoughts in your head may not be your thoughts. And that begs the question, whose are they? And that depends on you. You attract them. I don't know why that's a girl. I don't. I'm sure somebody will see the names. Stone Mountain Elementary School. What's that guy? A Mexican sombrero. East Mountain Street. Robert E. Lee Boulevard. Okay. Well, Robert E. Lee is in that mountain. That's Brown House. Old apartments. Williams, Philly style. Skyline Drive. Yeah, that's no, whatever. Robert E. Lee Boulevard. So look, there's another shape. I mean, you can do it all day long. And I don't know if it's just something that your mind can do. I see another head here. To me, it looks like actually like a cobra's head. So, but his neck comes down. His collarbone, his shoulder. elbow. He is holding that little girl. There's the rest of his bicep. See what I'm saying? Could also draw it down here. I wish I had a draw tool. Maybe I do, I don't know. No. It's almost like he's handing the baby over. I wonder if we can see what it is. Look at this. Look at this shit. Neck, chin. Okay. Like it's even got a hat. A little farmer's hat. There's the hair. There's a sleeve. Look at this shit. Look at this. There's the 2 legs. Are you kidding me? It's a dude. Wrong way, dude. Oh man. It's harder to see that way. Wow. Oh shit. Every one of these is a hood. Whoa. Whoa. All looking at this little kid. I need a draw tool. Probably killing you guys. Sorry. Anyways. Go and do it yourself. See what you see. It's obvious. Plain. Right in our faces. Oh. It's ingenious. Throw some light on it. And that big giant serpent. Look how far away you think you can see that. Yet this is what you're supposed to be looking at. That's the focal. Insane, isn't it? What we don't pay attention to. There's snakes everywhere. I mean, everywhere. Oh, you know what I gotta do? I'm sorry.
Even exist would involve sacrificing babies, drinking blood, or something else equally horrible or bizarre. In reality, though, following Satan is far more mundane and universal than most people realize or would care to admit.
So, I get it. We do what we want. But on a spiritual level, the government's doing the same thing. We do what we want. I showed everybody the Greg Hunter show that this country is misplaced or undocumented 21 trillion. That's $trillion. I think since the Obama administration or something like that. I don't know. It's an awful lot of money. It could just about pay off our national debt. So it boils down to, once again, good versus evil. Why would I say it's evil? Well, in this country, in America, our forefathers that wrote us the Constitution. Remember, it's borrowed from God's law. That all men are created equal. And that do your best to get along. If it be possible. With some people, it's just not possible. If those people get out of hand, then something needs to be done. So I have no problem, nor should anybody else, if people just want to party. Let's do what you're going to do. But when you start casting spells and people don't know it, people have no idea that their children are being indoctrinated into evil, into being a child of the side that's not going to last too much longer. What's this
Seven
about?
Footprints to Satan, Abraham Merritt, published, 1927. Categories: fiction, mystery and detective, thrillers. About Merritt, Abraham Merritt, January 20th, 1884, August 21st, 1943, who published under the byline A. Merritt was an American editor and author of works of fantastic fiction. Source: Wikipedia. Also available on our channel. Merritt, Burn, Witch, Burn, 1932. The Moon Pool, 1919. The Ship of Ishtar, 1924. The Face in the Abyss, 1923. Three Lines of Old French, 1919. The Metal Monster, 1920. Through the Dragon Glass, 1917. Creep, Shadow, 1934. The Women of the Wood, 1926. The Fox Woman, 1949. Copyright: this work is available for countries where copyright is life plus 70. Chapter 1. The clock was striking 8 as I walked out of the doors of the Discoverers Club and stood for a moment looking down lower Fifth Avenue. As I paused, I felt with full force that uncomfortable sensation of being watched that had both puzzled and harassed me for the past 2 weeks. A curiously prickly, cold feeling somewhere deep under the skin on the side that the watchers are located. An odd sort of tingling pressure. It is a queer sort of a sensitivity that I have in common with most men who spend much of their lives in the jungle or desert. It is a throwback to some primitive sixth sense, since all savages have it until they get introduced.
Primitive sixth sense 6. I like saying 666. Huh. All savages have it until they get introduced to the white man's liquor.
to the white man's liquor. Trouble was I couldn't localize the sensation. It seemed to trickle in on me from all sides. I scanned the street. 3 taxis were drawn up along the curb in front of the club. They were empty and their drivers busy talking. There were no loiterers that I could see. The 2 swift side-rubbing streams of traffic swept up and down the avenue. I studied the windows of the opposite houses. There was no sign in them of any watchers, yet eyes were upon me, intently. I knew it. The warning had come to me in many places this last fortnight. I had felt the unseen watchers time and again in the museum where I had gone to look at the Yunnan jades. I had made it possible for rich old Rockbill to put there with distinct increase to his reputation as a philanthropist. It had come to me in the theatre and while riding in the park, in the brokers' offices where I myself had watched. The money the jades had brought me melt swiftly away in a game which I now ruefully admitted I knew less than nothing about. I had felt it in the streets, and that was to be expected. But I had also felt it at the club, and that was not to be expected, and it bothered me more than anything else. Yet,
Because you're supposed to fit in at the club, right? Now you don't fit in.
yes, I was under strictest surveillance. But why? That was what this night I had determined to find out. At a touch upon my shoulder, I jumped and swept my hand halfway up to the little automatic under my left armpit. By that, suddenly I realized how badly the mystery had gotten on my nerves. I turned and grinned a bit sheepishly into the face of Big Lars Thorwaldsen, back in New York only a few days from his 2 years in the Antarctic. Bit jerky, aren't you, Jim? He asked. What's the matter? Been on a bender? Nothing like it, Lars, I answered. Too much city, I guess. Too much continual noise and motion. And too many people, I added with a real candor he could not suspect. God, he exclaimed. It all looks good to me. I'm eating it up after those 2 years. But I suppose in a month or 2 I'll be feeling the same way about it. I hear you're going away again soon. Where this time? Back to China? I shook my head. I did not feel like telling Lars that my destination was entirely controlled by whatever might turn up before I had spent the $65 in my wallet and the 7 quarters and 2 dimes in my pocket. Not in trouble, are you, Jim? He looked at me more keenly. If you are, I'd be glad to help you. I shook my head. Everybody knew that old Rockbill had been unusually generous about those infernal jades. I had my pride, and staggered though I was by that amazingly rapid melting away of a golden deposit I had confidently expected to grow into a barrier against care for the rest of my life. Make me, as a matter of fact, independent of all chance. I did not feel like telling even Lars of my folly. Besides, I was not yet that hopeless of all things. A beachcomber in New York. Something would turn up. Wait, he said, as someone called him back into the club. But I did not wait. Even less than bearing my unfortunate gamble did I feel like telling about my watchers. I stepped down into the street. Who was it that was watching me, and why? Someone from China who had followed after the treasure I had taken from the ancient tomb? I could not believe it. Qin Wang, bandit though he might be, and accomplished graduate of American poker as well as of Cornell, would have sent no spies after me. Our, well, I call it transaction, irregular as it had been, was finished in his mind when he had lost. Crooked as he might be with the cards, he was not the man to go back on his word, of that I was sure. Besides, there had been no need of letting me get this far before striking. No, they were no emissaries of Qin Wang. There had been that mock arrest in Paris, designed to get me quickly out of the way for a few hours, as the ransacked condition of my room and baggage showed when I returned. A return undoubtedly much earlier than the thieves had planned, due to my
What is this about?
extraordinarily powerful. But when I had gotten within the great...
What is this?
Hi, and welcome back to another look at our hidden history. In this episode, I will be uncovering what I believe is a cover-up so large, so incredible, it dwarfs the great Tartarian Empire. From the foothills of Peru, we travel directly back to the empire that was Tartaria. As if that was not incredible enough, I go further and deeper to uncover a deception that's been with us for thousands of years, and one that
He's saying it, not me. This stuff's cool. This stuff is fun. The problem is, it's real. It's freaking real. In God's Word, He talks about different peoples, and that the Israelites aren't supposed to mingle or mix with these different peoples. But some of these, the Hittites, the Aborites, the Medianites, these different tribes aren't necessarily we don't know where they came from, right? We know God created them, but God talks about the Anunnaki and their influence, and it follows the biblical narrative.
Maintains control even to this day. Instead of just stating that history is a lie, we delve deeper into the reasons behind that lie and why archaeology refuses to even look or contemplate at the evidence that so many have uncovered. Be prepared to have your historical view of the world changed forever. See you on the other side.
I'm not going to play too much of this, but very interesting.
Hi, and welcome back, and thanks for joining me on our continuing journey of exploration. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell. And with that said, let's begin. First, I'd like to draw your attention to something hidden in plain sight, something that allows the few to control the ideas, thoughts, and assumptions of the many. And in order to fully understand the complexity of how such deceptions are achieved on such a scale with relative ease, it's important to understand the mechanisms used. I call it the splitting of our attention, the fragmentation of our focus, the division of holistic knowledge causing confusion in our ability to see a clear picture of our past, present, and therefore the future. And I believe it is or was planned and is deliberate. To understand this idea of how to hide something in plain sight, we first have to look at how it came about and the same methods that are used every day, even now.
I'm going to stop here, but you ever asked yourself this question? Why? What are they hiding in plain sight? What would the reason be to do that? To hide it in plain sight, in your face, always been there. Now all of a sudden, it's really something else, right? They led us to believe that mountain carving, the largest relief, I want to see how they did it. It looked pretty damn detailed. But why would they throw it in our face? What would be the purpose of that? And then, how is it happening all over the world? I mean, is everybody wicked that we see on television? Something tells me in the oppression, keep them dumbed down, right? Mess with the diet, the food supply, or quality of food. I mean, they're really getting bad using human waste as fertilizer for our crops. Not cool. Not meant to do that. But why? Why would they do this? And who is it?
So let me explain about this fragmentation by giving an example of the tools used of concealment during the Manhattan Project, just as an example, and we'll move on from there. Like all top secret projects, the Manhattan Project was so secret the overall reason for its existence had to be kept that way, even from those involved in it. No one person knew the overall picture. This idea of
Take a good, hard look at this. It's a clown. It's a big freaking clown. It's open mouth, big smile, red ball nose. Some would say it's baloney. But that's like a big clown.
need to know was born out of the need to maintain secrecy and hide in plain sight the goals of the overall project. And as some of you may know, the Manhattan Project was a research and development undertaking during World War II that produced
Who paid for it?
the first nuclear weapons. And this need to know or compartmentalization of tasks and information made sure there would be no one person who could spill the beans, as it were, on what the overall project was about. Now, let us take a closer look at the principles involved in this splitting of tasks and knowledge from a historical point of view. The easiest way to keep a majority of people in the dark, as well as we know now, is relatively simple. Divide up the information in such a way, never allow anyone to see the complete picture. Our ancestors, historically speaking, had stories handed down to them from one generation to the next. And in the best oral traditions, through songs, stories, and cultural traditions, history was kept alive. From writings on cave walls to codices of South America to the Sumerian tablets, these all gave an overall image of life, history, and what we call a cultural memory. Hieroglyphs depicted the life and times of whole civilizations, thus allowing us to gain an insight into a much bigger picture. Now fast forward to a time of the mud flood and to the late 1800s, through to the early 19th century, 1800s, through to the early 19th century, we were given the gift of education. Or were we? I proposed we were force-fed the same conditions as those working on the Manhattan Project. We were given a single slice of the overall picture, and that slice was overcomplicated to keep us from looking at the big picture, the picture of who we are, where we came from, and what we could be. We are still attempting to piece together the jigsaw of history because of this fragmentation, from geology and earthquakes to asteroids causing quakes, volcanoes to erupt, and disasters to occur. But in order to understand this, we have to troll through geology, astronomy, volcanology, climatology, geology, and a myriad of ologies just to form a picture or a snapshot of a moment in time. We are compelled to sit in classrooms that fractured how holistically about access and freedom of information. We now have a system of confusion sold as education, when its goal is to compartmentalize knowledge that should be connected.
So I was going to stop there. I didn't. No. I could go on for days. The four hidden dynasties. That's what I want to say. Education, religion. Satan works from a pulpit too. He loves that spot. Hence the big churches with serpents all over them. And the architecture and all the artwork. It's bad. People think that's worshiping. It is. Worshiping God. It is. Lowercase g. And that's the deception. That you're the one sitting in the congregation and you love God. You really do love Jesus. Once you know what he did for you, even just through the stories, if you never read the book, If you never read the book, it says you're in deep crap. Basically, there's no way. You're just going to be wasted. When I say that, I mean taken in by the deception. Remember, this is all spiritual. But when I say spiritual, know that that is reality. You just choose not to believe it. The flesh is the temporal. The spirit is the eternal. Till judgment. Let's let it go there. I'm going to bed. Good night. Get in your Father's word. It's the only thing that can save you. I can't. Your mama can't. Pastor can't. Nobody on this earth can save you. Except for this book and the words contained in it. That is Christ. That guides you in this world, in this life. It lets you avoid the pitfalls of life. Very good advice. Very good advice. This video that I'm doing right now, showing you the serpent head in the sky, talking about it, go to these guys' channels. I've never been on this one. But two species, no doubt, Cain and Abel. And Cain was the offspring of the devil. That's what the book says. That's what the manuscripts scream it. It's plain as day in the manuscripts. Those people live on the earth with us still to this day. And they run all of those hidden dynasties along with Satan. His spirit. Can influence yours. Unless you're covered with Christ. So, my advice, what's going around, and if I can understand this book, there's no reason anybody else can't. That's for damn sure. God bless.